And I've got it. There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Love meeting, the meeting where we all get together as a membership and anybody who's interested in the movement. And if we can just take a minute to come into this space where we're all together, come down from the head and what's been going on today, and come into the quiet space in the heart. Just take a few breaths and let the shoulders drop, let the body relax into the seat that you're sitting in. And then let's take a few moments to be grateful for all that we have, for all that's happening at this moment. Let's be grateful for the spring that is coming, the buds that are coming out on the trees and the crops that are starting to shoot up. So thank you for the birds that are starting to sing and be seen in their beautiful plumage. And thank you for the energies that are pouring in at the moment, that are coming in and helping us all to up level and helping us all to regain our connection with each other. Thank you for the technology that's helping to bridge that gap at the moment. And thank you for all the people who are finding their way to this awakening through various means, but thank you for all the steps that are bringing us to a greater understanding and a greater knowledge. And again, a greater connection with the universe and with each other. And just spare a few moments of thought for those who are being caught up by the dragnet, if you like, of the third paradigm that is still holding on to us a little bit. So we think of people like Julian Assange, people who are facing persecution in their various ways, Chris Cloverdale. We've had our own Rachel, Steve Forsyth, also down in the Dorset type area. And just send a little bit of love out to those people who are at the coalface and having to hold the space while the echoes of the old order carry on around for a bit. Okay, and let's come back in and have a little bit of a chat about what's been going on then. So it's good to see you all here. We've had some progress, well, some developments, I suppose, not really progress. You could call it sort of backward steps, but this is what we were expecting this year, is that the old order will will try and regain a hold on authority a little bit. So we do expect to see that happening this year. And at the moment, it's manifesting in the mayor elections and the police commissioner elections and that sort of thing, where they have put very, very high deposits to discourage frivolous applications to the mayor. That means us, by the way. That means us. It means people who aren't in the Tory party and the Labour Party, because obviously their deposits are paid for by the party, which gets its money, gets a lot of money from the taxpayer via the MPs. So every time there's an MP elected, they get, was it, I'm trying to remember what it was it 21,500 or something like that? It was a lot of money, more than that a party has ever had, or a movement ever had, even when it was trying for the Electoral Commission. It was, and more than most parties, most of the little ones have ever had passed through their system. So yeah, completely different off the scale stuff. We could do a fundraising campaign and we could have gone for that and stood against them and put forward a serious candidate. But actually, for many reasons, we have decided not to do that. My own personal feeling is that we really shouldn't be colluding in that type of system. This system that is seriously putting barriers to democracy in place and trying to stop ordinary people from standing. There is no way people like the builder down the road could stand he just couldn't. It would take years for him to get together £5,000 to stand and another £5,000 to be on the censored, approved literature that they are sending out. So for that reason, I think we sort of stand in solidarity. We say we don't want this, but also it's becoming very clear that nobody actually wanted these flipping posts anyway. It's just a tier of government that came in by a public consultation that I certainly wasn't aware of. I don't think anybody was aware of, except the people who were going to give the right answers, which were the members of the Tory and the Labour Party. So the actual existence of this post is also very undemocratic. It's clearly a way to bring in ULEZ and all the other nonsense. So Rachel is thinking of doing starting a shadow campaign. We'll look for ideas on that and very much support some ideas on how to get that going. So I'm going to just go to Julie, who's put her hand up.
Yeah, the YouTube thing that I listened to this morning that I shared actually
on Twitter.
Yeah, actually showed that even that consultation, the feedback from that was not that we wanted regional mayors. So yeah, I was staggered at what he said, and to actually have that as justification for what they're doing just shows that they're not even following what the responses said. So yeah.
Yes, I did listen to it, and they tried very hard to get the right response, and they've done some jiggery pokery to make it appear as though they got the right response, and in fact they didn't. So actually, even the select people who voted, who actually were consulted, did not want it. So it's actually really incredible. It's really incredible that we've got this at all. So Rachel, carry on.
Sorry, Julie, were you complete there?
Complete for now, and I'm amazed that this technology can put my hand up. I mean, yeah, it's just incredible.
I
Okay.
can't do it. I can't get it to do it.
You've obviously got your AI switched on, Julie. Okay, so I just wanted to say I specifically went live with the video how the new East Midlands mayor could really up your life, and I went live with it yesterday on the spring equinox. Very specifically, that point in time is a very powerful pivot point, often used by the malevolent ones to put in. That's when they started doing all the lockdowns, if you remember, in 2020. They did it on the spring equinox, and they worked on the solstices and the key points in the year. So to complete that game. So that's when I put it out, and it's had about 1.6 thousand views already. And if you read the comments, their whole completely in support. And there was a very interesting comment that someone just completely hit the nail on the head, which hadn't quite clicked with me, which is, if you question the system, you will be fined £5,000. That's essentially what it is. It's basically a fine. And it just occurred to me, because obviously all of these local councils are starting to be infiltrated by independents and Greens, and they're starting to fragment all of the local councils, so that, like, for example, Derby fell and has got no overall control. Derbyshire Dales has no overall control. So their power is waning because they're being infiltrated at that lower level, which is why they need to put in this middle layer, so that it could be like Con Lab, basically, the two cheeks of the same arse. Because there's no way that with all of that fragmentation at the bottom layers, that they could bulldoze these things through, especially given that a lot of the council meetings are now being attended by the public, who are speaking out and creating a lot of fuss. Like we've seen it, I think, in Colchester, and various different, Oxford had it too, Thurrock, I think, I forget all the names, but there's a big movement now of the public going to the council meetings and pattern interrupting them. So it's kind of like they're losing control. And the thing that I predict, I hope it doesn't happen, but I suspect what they will do is they will similarly attempt to raise the bar for the general election, and instead of it being £500, that they raise it to 1,000, 5,000 to prevent, as you say, frivolous candidates. But if the public wants a frivolous candidate, if they want to vote in Mr. Looney Binhead or whatever, Mr. Binhead, let the people have what they want. If they want a frivolous, if they want to appoint a court jester to go to Westminster to represent them, so be it. It's the choice of the people. Who decides what is frivolous and what isn't? This is a complete affront on democracy. And it's funny actually, because I got a request, my first press request yesterday. I saw it from the local chambers of commerce wanting to interview me about all of the benevolent things that I would do if I became mayor. And I said, I've withdrawn and here's my video. And the very best thing, the very best service that I can be to the people and to the small businesses of Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire right now, is to run a shadow campaign and to encourage people to vote I do not consent. Because this new combined county authority, the new mayor, it's going to negatively impact all of the lives of the people, and we would be absolutely stupid and naive to think that it's benevolent by any stretch of the imagination. So I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but I know a lot of people watch these videos, including the journalists are watching these the videos that we're putting out. And I suspect the powers that be, even though we're not huge, I suspect that they're very carefully watching people like us, because it's small groups that have always transformed the world. It's always been a small group that, with the impetus and the vision and the courage of their convictions, that sparks the revolution, or the evolution in our case. So I just wanted to just say all of that, and I'll zip it now.
Okay, Carrie, were you waving at me? That's it. We got. How are you able to unmute?
Yes.
Oh, look at you. Go.
No, I was just kind of, it was just in agreement of all the and the fact that, certain people might be watching this, so I was just waving to them.
Yeah.
Gently.
Ni hao.
I am here. Now I am actually speaking. Is it okay if I just briefly
Yes.
talk about something? Last Saturday there was a farmers' rally in Truro, which was massive, and the guy, Farmer Pete, who led the parade, had a massive placard on the front saying "End the net zero madness."
Well done, farmers. Well done. Nice to see
the farmers now, I was giving out leaflets and stuff, and they were opening up their cabs and grabbing them and going, oh wow, great, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And we were, as another group, we were discussing the fact that maybe farmers, they're very busy people, then they don't understand the full agenda, but believe me, they do now. And they've started up a Facebook page, and they've started a Tuesday farmers market in Falmouth, and they've also someone has started up a delivery service like the old dairies, where they're delivering milk and yogurt and eggs and stuff like that. I don't know whether it's in one of those little vehicles that they used to have, but yeah,
you remember that noise in the morning?
Yeah, and the clank of bottles. And it's the milk is actually not sort of boiled up and interfered with and all the rest of it, so that's good news.
Apparently raw milk is making a real
it is
a real resurgence. I was reading this in my
It is
Marcus
indeed.
Guardian or whatever, and it's partly because of Insta that young kids want raw milk because of its weight. It has an enzyme in that is necessary for weight loss, for getting rid of getting fat, lipase, and of course all the young girls want it, and this is where people are going for their information now. The next generation are going to Insta, and actually my daughter keeps coming and telling me what's on Insta, and there's some really good stuff on it, really good. I think we should get our message out on Insta. I mean, here's me with a phone that barely functions, you know. So knowing that I really do, we should be getting out on these platforms. So yeah, that's up to me, isn't it, to get that one sorted. But
Yeah,
I love not being on social media. I hate having to do Twitter, but I do it every day. But I'm just like, oh God, you know, got to
yeah.
media. So
Well, young
it's
people,
one of these things I feel I can't, you know, it's a little vibration lowering. I prefer not to do it, but I sort of need to step up and just
it's a necessary
make
evil.
try and make it an uplifting thing. Clearly it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. The other thing was that the Community Assembly of the British Isles, which is now in Canada as well as Australia and New Zealand, have joined up with the National Residents Association, which you obviously know about. They're a big organisation, and they've got loads of alternative communities already set up, and they want to work with us on food security, and they're also doing stuff on rolling back 5G, and so we have suddenly become you know, a much bigger force, if you know what I mean. So that's great. And also we're doing the meditations on Sundays and Mondays, and on Monday when we were doing it, several people noticed that there was this intense blue light coming in, and my husband even experienced the room was actually vibrating, which is quite sort of mind-blowing. So that's happening as well, and that seems to be that. I know Pam Gregory is also doing one on a Sunday, a meditation at the same time.
She's just asking people to join.
And it's all impacting, and you can feel it. And young people are waking up, because I was concerned about that. And then I spoke to a group of friends of mine, and they said they know quite a lot of people in their early 20s who are suddenly, oh, that's
crap.
what's happening.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot going, oh my God, you know, the transgender has gone a bit mad, and they're going, oh, what have we done? You know, so there's a lot of that. That blue light thing's really interesting. I remember, because I was stood outside going, with my eyes closed, oh, that's amazing. That's a lovely sort of bluey green. That's just, I don't know whether it was the same time or not ever. I just remember sitting there going, what a pretty colour. That's really interesting. I've not seen that colour before, ever. It's just like, I don't know. Lindsay was nodding along. Did you get that, Lindsay? Did you? Sorry, I will come to you, Simon. I'm just
okay. Well, thank you. I'll that's basically what I wanted to just convey to you all. There's good things happening, and they're happening so fast.
Yeah,
it's you know, you've hardly got time to take a breath, and something else is developed. I can't believe the speed of it. So that can only be a good thing, that it's working.
Yeah, totally.
And hopefully we're melting the opposition.
They're just dissolving away.
Yes.
Yeah. Lindsay, did you get that blue light thing?
It seems, to my awareness, it's a common, you know, I've joined a meditation circle locally here, and again, I'm personally, I'm finding a tremendous amount of synchronicity and connection, which is just accelerating rapidly. So I've found quite a lot of people I was sort of aware of anyway and interconnected with, but you know, it is, to my understanding, it is a raising of frequency, which we're all, you know, we're all being subject to. It's internal, external. There isn't an internal and external. It is, but this is what's going on, and it's incredibly rapid. I was fascinated again with Rachel, and this is with the awareness that I've been putting out, that, you know, this time, the equinox, this is when we've had a lot of the the changes, whether it be COVID or the Ukraine war, and you go back to the financial crash in 2008, and it is that point, and it is it is the start of our sort of year, our
Tis the new year.
astrological year. A lot of different subjects interweave, don't they? And
They do.
whatever they might be, there is a community that have managed to weave an awful lot together, and it does need to come into our sort of non-politics as well. It needs to come into
Totally.
everything, doesn't
I
it?
think we have to do that. Anyway, can I?
Sorry.
Thank you, Lindsay. That's it's really good to know that that's happening in the spiritual world as well. I know you're very, very much more into the, energy side. Simon, what are you? Wait, you're waving at us.
Yeah,
You got.
I like these calls. They prompt thought processes. Just quick follow up on what Carrie's saying. I wanted to go, but I couldn't make it. The local council here, Tewkesbury Borough Council, are running a series of workshops on how you can run a business with a net zero agenda. So taxpayers, whether they're requested or not, are paying to indoctrinate small businesses on the net zero bullshit. Second thing that really occurred to me that I really think we should look into this aspect of frivolity and putting up the deposit to stand for council. I was thinking whilst you were saying, Rachel, I actually think when people vote for the monster raving loony party, they are effectively voting none of the above, because they don't expect that person to win. They get quite a few votes, so and they're fundraising, they're charitable driven, so they're raising enough money to pay the deposit and raise money for charity. So if you could learn from what they've done and align a vote for a charitable endeavour, which surreptitiously is a vote for none of the above, there's an angle there, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, the Monster Raving Loony Party, they are sort of an approved opposition, if you like, I would say. If you ever go to the count, so I haven't been to many, but I've been to a few, and the Monster Raving Loony Party, when their result is announced, everybody gives a big cheer, the Tories and everyone, they give them a big cheer. When the results are announced for something like, I don't know, Freedom Alliance, whatever, it's sort of very stony, very hostile reception. I've spoken to, Lord Such and the other members of the Loony Party, and they have absolutely no clue what's going on, or at least they appear not to. They just look at me like I've gone mad. They do just see it as a bit of, maybe they genuinely do just see it as a bit of fun. And like you say, a charitable endeavour, and I've no objection to there being fun in it at all. I think everything should be fun, everything, if we're going to do it. Otherwise, it's we're on the wrong track. If it's feeling like it's crappy and hard work and you're dragging, you're definitely on the wrong track. So yeah, it should be fun. The call should be fun. They, oh look, here's my little interrupter. I'm not going to chuck her out because in the end, it's what it's all about, isn't it? And I would not be bothering with any of this if it wasn't for these little.
The third thing, Rachel, I did listen to your video, which I thought was excellent. But one aspect that you raised and you didn't then address it is you mentioned that I think some of the local councils have actually rejected being part of it, despite the huge financial bribes. Why did they still reject it? And is there a possibility for these local mid-tier borough county councils to actually change their mind and say, we don't want to be part of being aligned with the mayor anymore?
In the case of Nottingham and Nottinghamshire, they're pretty much held over a barrel with the finances, is my opinion. It might be the case in Derbyshire as well. It's basically like you're in deep doo-doo because you've got no money. But look, here's a solution. If you decide to come together in this combined authority, there'll be this big pot that, yes, eventually will be passing on to the taxpayers. But for now, there's a big pot coming from the government for you. And that's my opinion. I don't think Leicestershire is in that level of doo-doo. if you like. I mean, Nottingham looks like a third world place at the moment. It's not. It's just.
Lynn, did you watch the video? Because I did go through
Yes, it
the
was great.
finances of the
Yeah.
councils to show that that's a real driver. But Leicestershire declined, and there is an interview. There is an article online that you can find where they basically decided that they didn't want to be involved. They wanted to retain their control over their area, and that's
it.
for that
And could
reason.
that be some of Andrew Bridgen's influence, do you think? Because he's northwest
Maybe.
Leicestershire.
It might be. It might be,
Leicestershire
but they
has a-
rumbled what was going on for sure.
Leicester has a bit of a history, actually. It was the place, the only place in the country, as far as I know, that refused to, having had its fingers burnt, refused to vaccinate for shingles, and brought in its own quarantining and sterilization program. So they basically, if anyone got not shingles, sorry, wrong one, smallpox, they went round when a case broke out, they basically isolated for a bit, you know, and most people were very willing to do that, and they sterilized the house, and that was it, and they had a much better result than anywhere else in the country. It was amazing. So yeah, a little bit of a history of not playing along in Leicestershire. So that's something to read up on if you want to, in Dissolving Illusions. It's a quite nice little story, because I didn't know it. It's not, you know, I live right on the border with Leicestershire. I consider myself Leicestershire to a large extent, and we never hear about it. We're never told this little bit of history. So who else would like to speak that we haven't spoken to yet? We've got Chris Nettleship. Would you like to talk? Have you got your camera on?
Yeah, can you hear me, Lynn?
I
Is that
can,
all right?
yes. Nice to see you.
Excellent. Well, big thanks for Julie for sending me the login details on Zoom. I appreciate that, and yeah, it's nice to join you. I've been watching a few of your videos that Julie has very kindly passed on to me, YouTube stuff and things. It sounds very interesting. As regards the regional mayor, I mean, I've just read this book. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. Follow the Money, by a chap called, is it Paul Johnson? Really interesting book. And he basically describes where all of our tax money is going. And it's heartbreaking once you read it to realise the corruption that's involved and the absolute scandalous waste of money that the local councils are doing and that central government's doing. But what he does mention in this is that since Scotland and Wales got devolution, they actually get far more per head than what people in England do. The benefits that's available in the devolved countries is amazing. Now, if Ben Bradley is trying to sell the East Midlands mayor along the same pretext as that, fair enough. But where's the evidence? Are we going to get this? And this is what we need to challenge him about, in my opinion, because I don't like a lot have said, I don't think we are going to get the benefits that the devolved governments are going to get through a devolution of two counties together. What I believe is happening is that there's not enough taxpayers in Derbyshire to foot the bill. So they want Nottinghamshire combined with them to bail out Derbyshire. That's my personal opinion. I may be wrong economically, but that's what I believe. Anything else to say? I am involved with a group called Make Votes Matter. I don't know if anybody's aware of them.
So what does that do? Does that I mean, we're thinking of we are encouraging people to put "I do not consent" on the ballot form for this particular election, because it's a null and, well, we believe the election itself is a non-democratic election. So what would Make Votes Matter do?
Well, I agree with you, Lynn. Yeah, it is undemocratic. The fact is, under first past the post, what we operate under now, which is the same system that we had. I don't know if you recall an episode of Blackadder Goes the Third, was it, from the 80s, if you ever used to watch the series. They put Baldrick forward as a candidate, and there was only one elector, one voter, which was some aristocrat back in the 1700s, the Regency period. And they used to call them rotten boroughs. Now, under a first past the post system, we've just got 650 rotten boroughs, in my opinion. If you look at the other European countries, I know a lot of people say Brexit's got us away from Europe and all this lot. If you look at Germany, you look at Scandinavia, look at Spain, Italy, they've all got a proportional representation system. So basically, every vote that is cast is counted. And a lot of the smaller parties, like your Love Party, would probably get representation if you got the interest under proportional representation, whereas you wouldn't get a look in under first past the post, which is a very corrupt way of holding elections. Julie will tell you about this. We've had various meetings about it. We've had a representative from Make Votes Matter come and talk to us to go through the figures, the pie charts and the graphs, and show us how corrupt first past the post is. So as far as I'm concerned, and still until we actually change the way that we elect parliamentarians and councillors and mayors, not that we need mayors, as we know, into our parliament, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get what you're saying about PR. I mean, I personally am looking forward to the day when these parliamentary elections and everything are complete irrelevance, or just we are actually a community, I suppose, anarchists. We self-rule. We look after our own communities, and the communities work together on projects that benefit them all. You know, if you want to build a road from there to there, it probably makes sense to group together as communities to fund it. I can see communities working together, but otherwise communities are pretty self-sufficient. They sort their own energy out, they sort their own health. Well, people take responsibility for it themselves. We are so discouraged to rely on the central provision for everything, you know, the state, and it clearly doesn't work. We haven't got it. We haven't got provision for anything at all, really. So I'm agreeing with you in that, but to me it's like I want to get to the stage where actually we sort ourselves out, and Westminster is a historical anomaly in human history. But that's my personal view. I don't think we're going to get there that quickly. We probably need the bridging, which is what we're also about, isn't it? We've got a foot in both camps. We've got a foot in this, in looking what's going on, and also a foot in where we're going to. And it can be hard. It can be quite hard to sort of stay in this high vibe, try and stay in a high vibe place while also keeping an eye on what's going on here and trying to limit the damage. So, yeah. So you're sort of, I think I see Make Votes Matter perhaps as another bridging thing. You're right, but I'd love to move past this whole politics stuff. Rachel, can I come to you?
Yeah, just quickly, just to say that the figures, that actually Nottinghamshire is way more in the financial shit than Derbyshire, because it's Nottinghamshire Council, which is the Ben Bradley presides over, is over 60 million forecast in deficit, and Nottingham City Council itself is 50 million in deficit. So collectively, that's a huge gap in the funding. I just wanted to mention that.
Ben Bradley's in that one, yes, presiding over that. I mean,
and this is the point: is like he wants to be mayor. He's already head of the council in Nottinghamshire, massive budget deficit. He's already mayor for Mansfield, potholes everywhere. Julie can talk about Mansfield, and he wants to be East Midlands mayor. I mean, really, seriously?
I know it's utter joke, isn't he? But there we go. Yeah, so thank you, Rachel. And Lindsay, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm being a bit conscious that I might be on a tangent with it all, but hearing what you're all saying here again, you know, from the connections that I have, and I like that Carrie refers to Pam Gregory, because she's a well-respected person. Again, the people that I'm mixing with are close associates of her, so that, you know, it depends how deep you go down a sort of, whatever the word is, spiritual route. But it is love. This is the whole point of the wording of your party. It is all this love that we are outside of the dimension of our thinking process. The constant awareness is, as you're saying, Lynn, that this is crumbling. We're not going to I don't know what the bridging process is between now and a not too distant future. We're not talking about tens of years, even maybe 2 years. Something radical is shifting, and it's witnessed, and as Carrie mentions, Pam Gregory, it's very witnessable within astrology. It's witnessable with many, many, many different modalities, that things are shifting of a far greater cause than just us. Where we have to be the workers on the ground in creating something, and I don't quite understand that myself, what that aspect is, but it is happening. Whatever anyone imagines, it's going to shift to a, rather than being a top-down structure, we're going to be, people up, and we get rid of this
I think a
control
much
above.
more level structure.
It's going to happen.
Yeah,
it is. No, it's a done deal.
it is. I mean, the energy lines, you will know around your area where
Yes.
you've got the energy lines are now so much bigger than they were.
Yes.
They are.
They're being activated.
There's more of, there's more of them. There's just there's all these M-class flares. We've got loads of energy coming in from space. Just incredible at the moment. And what a brilliant time to be alive in many ways. But we are the bridge, which is hard.
Yes.
It's hard, of course, sometimes you feel like so disconnected. You're doing splits, like they're over there and you're over here. Because I go to choir or, run my choir and everything. And there are a load of oldies and they're lovely people, snoozy as can be. And sometimes it feels like I'm talking to I'm like, what world are you living in? It doesn't look anything like the world that I live in. But that's, that's all we have to do. And I think basically our role is, first of all, obviously trying to build in our own way, as we all are in our own communities. I mean, Carrie's got Loveland, you've got Make Those Matter and all this. Build systems that we can use. Try and get in our micro generation, try and get in our food cooperatives, maybe even put some farms into private memberships so that people are not controlled by the government. Just, all trying to do our own little thing to make the new systems be ready, And I think, and the other aspect is this damage limitation, trying to pattern interrupt and limit what these people are able to get away with, and just keep calling it out and making sure that they can't go too far, because obviously the bigger the gap, the harder it's going to be to bridge, and the more uncomfortable it will be for a lot of people. So that's how I see it. It's sort of two aspects: build the new and limit what the old get up to and the old malevolent forces get up to. So who else have we got? We've got Francis here. Do you want to
I just interject with a very quick one? I'm reading about the Monster Raven Looney Party.
Okay.
Now, Patrick Moore, the astronomer, was their finance minister for a while. And apparently he said that the Monster Raven Looney Party has an advantage over all the other parties in the fact that they know they are loonies.
Yes, fair enough. Yeah, that's it. Brilliant. Anyway, Francis, have we got something from you? You're muted, Francis. Can't hear you, dear. Oh, still muted.
Yeah, there we go.
Here we go.
Hi there. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I've actually got to... can you still hear me?
Yes, we can, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've actually got to go in a moment. But mentioning Patrick Moore, actually, one of the earliest kind of warnings I ever got was a really old video from Patrick Moore from a long time ago, just warning about Europe and globalism. And he knew what the picture was a long time ago. And yeah, it was just a very old video on YouTube saying, we need to come out of Europe because of globalization. And yeah, that was one of the first kind of warnings I ever got was from him.
Brilliant.
Anyway,
Amazing,
I'm going to say goodbye.
People who know. Yeah. Did you have something else, Francis? Was there another point?
No, that's all for today. Unfortunately, yes, I have to scoot off now, but see you all
again. Good to hear from you. I'm glad we got round to speaking to you before you scooted.
Yes, okay.
Anyway, thank you. Yeah, good to hear that Patrick Moore, who was on it. I didn't know that. I didn't know. I think people, there was a generation that was perhaps a bit more aware than we were before, that it was all trained out of you at school. It was quite interesting. I still keep,
Yeah.
my mind is a little bit blown by this this thing that I heard a few weeks ago about NASA scientists looking at school kids and trying to find out the root of genius, to see how they could make geniuses, how they could get the next generation of geniuses. And they found that actually most kids at the age of 4 were geniuses, that they were they had very creative solutions, that by all definitions of genius, they were geniuses. And that by the time they got to 10, it was only about 30%. And by the time they were adults, it was less than 2%. And they concluded that non-creative and uncritical thinking was learnt. You had to learn it. You had to learn to be stupid, basically. And they were very, this was before COVID. So they were very firm that this was learnt in school. You know, this was something you had to be taught, and it was learnt in school. So yeah, it's and I think I feel as though I'm of that generation that did learn it in school and had to start learning properly once I came out of school. So I feel like I've got a bit of catching up to do, really. But Patrick Moore's generation, of course, some of them were very, you know, still in the very highly educated bracket, very well taught, if you like, before we had the national curriculum and government dogma being taught. Anyway, Julie's got a hand up. She's usually got some pertinence for us.
I was listening to Rupert Sheldrake yesterday and today, and he's got so much wealth of information. And so I would really listen to him and how he's been basically pushed out of even the scientific community. But that certain countries in the world have had people that have they've been very spiritual still, but they've complied enough with our Western approach, if I call it that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but they are starting to realise that they don't have to. And when you talk about generations, it's not really a generation as in a UK generation. And I know there's someone I know that she was very cross about how backwards supposedly Mansfield was as an education system. And yet where she was born in South Yorkshire and in London, it was supposed to be so much better. But to me, I know what I'm seeing now in schools, and this is why I left mainstream teaching. I only trained as a teacher when national curriculum was just coming in. And I'm really glad that I actually trained them, because if I'd have already got in the system from leaving school, I think I might have carried on and rode the storm. But I don't know. But anyway, I got in just as national curriculum was happening. But the more I see of what's happening now, and even the standardized testing that they're doing sort of year 2 and year 6, I think, but they're also doing it every year in between. And we've now got totally prison-like schools. And this term, they've just started having lanyards for each of the teachers and high-vis jackets. And honestly, it is getting more and more prison-like.
Yeah.
And I have to be careful what I say, because I don't want to be stopped from being able to take my grandchildren to school and pick them up. So I'm very mindful of what I say to anybody else because of certain views within the family. But we need to change this. We need proper community-based education, mixed ages, get away from all this standardized.
Multi-generational. There's no reason. I mean, I still learn. I don't want to be cut off from learning just because I'm like now almost 50.
But if we ever think we've learned everything, that's exactly the people that don't know what learning is about.
Absolutely, totally.
And yeah.
The more, yeah. So I mean, I'm absolutely for multi-generational learning and topic-based learning. Actually, what you're interested in, what's relevant. I can't believe, you know, I've just I went on holiday to Austria, and I'm not sure why. It was probably Rachel doing her Chinese dragon astrology on me and everything. Anyway, for some reason astrology twigged, and I read Pam Gregory's You Don't Really Believe in Astrology, Do You? And I sort of read that on holiday, and something else happened as well. And I spoke to Kathy Rose, who's an astrologer in America, And I was just like, why have we not been taught this stuff? You know, this is amazing. I've always, because I've always thought, oh, that's a bit of fun, you know, a little bit of a loopy.
Well, I don't know if you know, but the newspapers used to have proper astrology information for people, because where each of the planets is influences how you are.
Yeah.
But then they've minimized it down to just the
sun is
star,
Taurus, didn't they?
sun star sign.
Mhm.
And that is totally wrong. But they literally used to have pages and pages for people. Now, I've done astrology training along with loads of other training. And I know when I was going through a bit of a hiccup with a relationship, I happened to go on my astrology software and put our birth charts in. It explained why he was being like he was. So I knew then I didn't need to take it personally. Then a couple of months later, again, I was going through a bit of a hiccup, and I happened to go on it again, not thinking, oh, last time it explained it, because I don't want to live my life like that, but I don't need to take it personally. Oh, right, they're being influenced by this. And that's why I'm so glad
That's
to...
how the energies are interacting,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean, that it's like, I mean, now I've had it explained to me by the lovely Pam and all the rest of it. It just seems to me like we're trying to build a house without actually knowing where we're trying to build it, not knowing what the materials are, not knowing what it's for, not knowing, you know, how many rooms we're going to do, not having any sort of blueprint whatsoever. No, so I mean, I used to say all kids should come with their own manual, because you know, every one of them is flipping different. You think you've got it, and the next one comes along and it's completely different.
And I've always loved teaching the children or adults, because I've taught all ages. The ones that I could literally stand on my head and teach and they'd still learn, I'm not as interested in teaching. But the ones that they're not getting it, right, what is it about this they're not getting? And I've worked with behaviour unit children, I've worked with adults for literacy and numeracy, and I just find, and I've done specific learning difficulties masters training and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's more about how can we actually help these people to learn what is their way of learning, and how can we help them fit in the system enough so they don't feel isolated.
Well, it
And
turns
when
out
you
we
look at
do.
the number of famous people that we've got that are dyslexic and things, and still they are not properly acknowledging dyslexia. And I know someone who wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia until her third year in university, and this is only within about the last 5 years. And finally, and she's doing teaching, and she's now a trained teacher, but she wasn't diagnosed until the final year of that degree. It's just,
I think I would be
crazy
now. I
system.
think I'd be diagnosed dyslexic now. But anyway, but apparently we all do come in with our own blueprint and our own manual. We just don't know it. And you know, because you come in with this map of how the energy is at the time that you're born. That's the energy that you're born with, that you come in with, and then the rest of astrology is how it's influencing you from moment to moment, if you like, how the energies are interacting with your personal birth energy. And I just think, why on earth didn't we get taught this? And I went onto the website and looked up where Pam Gregory trained, Oxford summer schools. So I went to Oxford University, looked at their summer schools, not there, nothing there. So I just typed in summer schools, a summer school astrology Oxford, and that came up completely separately. It's at the Faculty of Astrological Sciences, and it's in an Oxford college, can't remember which one, but you go and stay there, and they run it over the course as well online. So, but there is no acknowledgement that there is a link at all between Oxford University and this astrology course, this diploma that you do.
But even the word lunatic comes from the full moon, and the police recognise that, and the influence of the wind. And having been a teacher in schools, when it's windy, oh my goodness, the kids are
windy
so
and
much
moon.
Yeah,
I remember it well. Anyway,
I'll let Rachel.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got Rachel here. So go Rachel.
Yeah, so just tying a few things in together. One big thing coming up astrologically is, of course, the solar eclipse on the 8th of April. And that is on the sort of Aries Libra axis, which is all about war and peace and me versus we. So and an eclipse is like a reset. Obviously, the sun's energy, which is streaming continuously, gets pattern interrupted, and it's like the sun's put out by the moon for a few minutes. So it's it's a very symbolic time because it's like the solar power, the masculine yang, is eclipsed by the yin, the tiny moon. It's very symbolic. So the fact that the three founders of the love movement are all female, there's something very symbolic about a pattern interrupt, especially given that this is happening in that very crucial election period. So that's number one thing. Second thing I want to say is about the whole of the kids with the high-vis jackets. I was in Bakewell Park, it was last year actually, and there were like little 3-4-year-olds from the nursery school who were being taken down to see the ducks on the river, literally all of them wearing high-vis jackets. I just absolutely was in shock, because it's all part of the psyop to recondition the mind. I mean, I go into a palpitation anytime I see a DHL delivery driver at my door, because I think it's the police. And also like Morrison's, they're all aligning behind this high-vis luminous green jacket uniform. It's a very sinister psyop which is coming in. And just to complete on the subject of our friends, the police, I got a letter this morning from Derbyshire, our friends at Derbyshire Police, saying that having carefully considered the matter, this is about my alleged electoral offences, which they actually state, this is regarding the offences you were reported for. And then they say on the 28th of December 2023, so that is months after the election, which was back in last May, March, April, May 2023. So it kind of implies that I did do the offences, but then it says, having carefully considered the matter, the CPS, Crown Persecution Service, as I call them, have made the decision not to bring any charges for either of the offences. So even though this letter exonerates me, the wording of it is that I'm a criminal, but they've decided not to proceed with charges. So I'm going to be writing back to this. And I am going to do a shadow campaign as well for the Police and Crime Commissioner. I am going to do that on the 1st of April, on April Fool's Day. And I'm going to include the footage of the outrageous behaviour of Derbyshire Police, who have acted completely unlawfully and completely outside of their oath of office, which is to serve the people, to protect the people and their property. They are not acting under oath. It's a sham. It's another part of the whole system which needs to be really have a light shone brightly into that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Right, we've got 3 minutes left. So I think what Rachel and Julie and myself, I think partly saying with the high-vis jacket thing is just to be aware of what is making up the psyops, because by the awareness it loses its power. It's a bit like, the subliminal advertising of coffee on telly, trying to make you drink coffee. Once you know that that's what they're trying to do, you see it and you go, oh, there they are, trying to manipulate me again into drinking coffee, which we know shuts down the frontal lobe and stops you doing any critical thinking, and also sends you into a sort of fear because your brain is being a little bit poisoned. And almost every scene in a film has coffee. So things like this, once we know what they're doing, it loses its power. So the high-vis jacket is training, and the coffee ads are training, and the alcohol ads and all that sort of thing. It's training you to go into this psyops. Another thing that is actually maybe you're not aware of at the moment is we are being trained for the paper carrying society, for the papers please. Kids are being asked for ID for the most ludicrous things. 16-year-olds, if they want a paracetamol, or if they want a coffee or an energy drink, they have to produce ID. They often have to produce ID to get into places like Twickenham or something like that, even if it's been, you have to have a ticket that's specific to you and things. So it's very much a papers please training that particularly the kids are being targeted with, just to buy the most simple things. Box of matches, that sort of stuff. They have to have ID. So we just be aware of that, so it loses its power. So you know what you're being trained for, what's going on, and then it comes out of the subconscious and into the conscious and loses its power over you.
I've also been told that apparently even year 6 children are starting to vape and things and can be quite ill with it. So, you know, vapes are much more available even than cigarettes. I don't know anything about age limits and things like that, but I think that's just part of this whole process as
Shutting
well.
down the frontal lobe.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I mean, we don't actually know what's in most of them. They're not regulated. Some of them are very toxic.
But as I say, if really they believe that cigarettes are as bad as they are, then why have they got them even for sale anymore? There's other stuff that they don't allow at all. But then I can just think, well, look at the pharmaceuticals and all the bad side effects that we have from those, so etc. etc. I'm very aware that Roger and DL haven't spoken yet.
And also, just briefly on tobacco, remember we can the tribes people use it for help for poison, for snake poison, with their horses, things like that. There are health benefits to tobacco when it's in its pure form. So let's have a look at I don't know whether DL wants to talk. DL, I don't know who it is not on camera. Nothing to say today.
That's Daniel.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Okay, so we've got Roger left. Roger, what have you got to tell us today?
Well, not a lot really. I'm just listening to the wisdom of you all, and I mean that because I've learnt a lot today. The one thing that I want to say in response to Rachel's report on the police activities, it's my belief that by making her feel so badly mentally uncomfortable, that in fact is a criminal offence of assault. Because assault just does not only relate to physical harm, it relates to mental harm. And I think if she gets in touch with her legal mentors, she might find that she could take action against the police on the grounds of assault.
It's certainly
So that's
harassment, you'd think, wouldn't you?
Well, I'm going further than harassment. I mean,
Fair enough.
assault is a bit more serious.
What does DL say about that? Yep, verbal threats are assault, physical is battery. Okay, so yes, somebody else mentioned the difference between assault and battery just yesterday. I think it might have been the People's lawyer, David, can't remember his name, but People's lawyer.
Edelman.
Thank you, yes. So he was also, or it might have been Chris Calderdale, who was, Chris Coverdale, they were talking on Richard Vobes about well, all sorts of things actually, but that did come up. So Julie, are you?
Yeah, I just wondered if people have seen the Mark Sexton recent video of talking about the treason that's been happening, and that these arrests need to be happening now. And so hopefully that's another positive step forwards that he's voicing and continuing to voice for people. We do need those people arresting and being put to justice. So
yeah. Yes, there's a lot of that, isn't there? I mean, hopefully they become entirely irrelevant, but I think there is an element of some sort of restorative justice, some sort of atonement for what's gone on. I'm not sure. I know I saw Andrew Bridgen calling for the death penalty. I was like, oh crikey, that's a
well, he didn't actually call for the death penalty. He called for he worded it differently to that, but he's been put across as though
okay, thank you.
I think he called for corporal punishment, and then when you look at what that actually means historically, so he has been sort of what he was saying, because we do need something to happen, but he did not actually use that wording, and so the mainstream have obviously jumped on that, as they do with everything when they want to, but they don't bother to jump on things when they could be doing it to actually support our better health.
Thank you, Julie. I completely fell for that. So I thought he had, and I can see there will be people who are angry and who do call for the death penalty, but I think from my own personal point of view is that, you know, these people are responsible for a lot of damage and millions of deaths, and simply killing them doesn't even begin to cover what they've done. Plus, I think death is not necessarily a punishment, you know, it's a move, isn't it? It's into the next phase. I'm sure we don't see it that way, do we? Not any of us.
Well, if
We
you
just see it
think
as the next part of the journey, but
if they were allowed death very quickly, then they wouldn't be having to continue their lives realizing for as
yeah,
long what they've put other people through. But also, I don't want them just going to prison. I want them doing some proper jobs like
something.
clearing up litter and other things to actually help communities. I don't see why I should be feeding them and giving them homes when we've got homeless on our streets
Yeah.
and people that can't even afford to heat themselves, clothe themselves, or feed themselves. So
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Julie. And Rachel?
Yeah, I would just say go on Twitter and look at the hashtag Nuremberg2 and take a look at just how many people are absolutely tenacious that there should be some international court of justice type trials to bring everyone to account, because it isn't just a local thing, this is a global thing. It's been masterminded, it's cold-blooded murder what has gone on, and it has been directed by the World Economic Forum, and these people need to be brought to account. And I think it's very important for the future for this false matrix to have this line drawn under it so that it can never happen again. And that's what they said about Nuremberg, the original Nuremberg trials. This must never happen again. And yet everything that we're experiencing has got the flavor of 1930s Germany running through it, like the Papers, Please that you were just saying, and the level of psyops.
I mean, Germany wasn't the only one. It was happening everywhere. That, you know, this eugenics agenda was happening.
Yeah.
You know, we can be all holier than thou, but it was here. You know, we were there right with them, and it was only really further on into the war that we started villainizing Hitler at all. So yeah, it's an interesting one. So Chris, have you something to say?
Yes, Lynn, I think it was Francis Goldstrom, who was Darwin's nephew, who was the first eugenicist. That was way back in the 1880s, as early as that. So the eugenics movement, I think it comes from Greek for good genes, don't it? Good breeding.
Like that, yes.
Yeah, and so they call the Nazis out. I mean, I disagree with what the Nazis did. I'm sure most people do. But the mainstream media in history portrays the Nazis as being the only people that went through with that kind of genocide, when actually they were just one race. The Soviets did it under Stalin with the Holodomor in Ukraine back in the 1930s, when he tried to starve everyone out. Mao did it in China with his great leap forward under communism. Sorry to go on like a history teacher. But basically what they've done now is very much similar to what they was doing in the 1930s, to what Mao was doing in China, to what Stalin was doing in Russia. But they've done it very surreptitiously, under a way that we care about you. And they've psyoped and pushed this message. And through the mainstream media, the BBC and the like, they've used this neuro-linguistic programming to basically brainwash everybody, indoctrinate us all to believe that these injections and these lockdowns and these masks and all of these restrictions are for his own good. And everybody that's tried to question them, as we know, as you've discussed earlier, has just been shut down. And it's so frustrating to think that they're getting away with it. But if we ask for the death penalty for them, we're at risk of falling into the trap that will become as bad as them. Absolutely.
That's exactly. I don't want to criminalize good people by making them kill somebody else. That's just not right. But yeah, it's I think it's when you hear things like it's for your own good or for the common good, which it was under Stalin, it's for the good of society or for the good of somebody. It's like, no, it should stop making your blood run cold, shouldn't it? When you hear things like that, if it's for the good of one, it's for the good of all. It's for the good of one as well. If it's a good energy behind whatever it is, it's good for everybody. And I don't think any of us fall for this greater good or for your own good or anything anymore. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Simon, you've got something to say?
Yeah, it's a big subject and maybe for another day, but I'd just like to touch upon it, following up what Lindsay was saying about, this moving everything down, bottom up, grassroots as opposed to top down. I'd really like to get into exactly what that means and what we envisage these communities will look like, because that's certainly what Julie and I are heavily involved with. But I just might mention, I listened to a really interesting interview on Novara Media with a bloke called Dan Evans, who's written a book. I can't remember the title of the book, but the conclusion actually is actually the whole meritocracy thing is what has been so pernicious, because they've created the cult of the individual, and people have not been interested in rising with their class. They've been driven by rising out of their class. People, you know, want to climb the ladder of the success, and they want to pull it up behind them. Mostly, that's what's divided us. So it's working together at a grassroots level and really caring about everybody equally. That's the challenge, because I don't know, maybe it's not really our nature. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that it's not. And basically what he said is that a lot of what's going on at the moment, the union strikes, you take the doctors' strikes, what they're really saying is they want their perceived status to be reestablished. That's what they're unhappy about. Meanwhile, what we've got is downward social mobility. That's what's the main thing that's going on at the moment. You know, everybody's got used to a higher standard of living, and that's reversing, and that's what's pissing people off. That's what's going on for most people. That's what's making people angry. They just feel resentful.
I think there's a lot of validity in what you're saying, Simon. This individualism, you know, people want to rise. I think that's true when you're coming at it from an ego point of view, and when you're coming at from a fairly low vibration. And we have had our vibrations lowered deliberately by a lot of things: toxins, education, you know, lack of spiritual connection. Religion's been crushed, and in some ways good, but it's taken away the spirituality of a lot of people as well. So for lots of reasons, we've had our vibration lowered, and that does make us very individualistic, I think. When you get a higher vibration, I do think the community becomes a lot more important, and actually you don't see yourself as one so much now. You start to feel it, and you feel if somebody else is in pain, you can't be happy because you feel that. You feel it. It's so. I mean, Nelson Mandela said it perfectly, didn't he? He said, while there's apartheid in Israel, none of us are free. So, and he was someone who knew apartheid. While you've got that somewhere, none of us can really be very happy if other people are suffering. So we all have to bring each other up. It's our sort of, when you get up there yourself, you want to bring everyone else with you. And so the job really comes back to us, doesn't it? It's about raising your vibration, and then you will want to bring up your communities and your whole vibration and everything. I think that's, it sort of brings us nicely back to, it is.
Well, Julie's thing, and the whole thing about home education. I mean, the education system focuses on each child as an individual, and you're here to compete.
Yeah.
Very little about vocations and altruism. It's just not taught, is it?
No, but the education system is also a very vibration lowering system, and the NASA people confirm that. It's not, you know, they said that creativity was crushed out of them. Actually, it's just as much about the vibration being lowered. It's the same thing, really. I mean, your creativity rises when you're able to receive, when you're able to see the big picture and see outside the box, and you do that with a raised vibration. When the vibration is low, you get this tunnel vision. It's like you can only see you can see this way or that way. It's that or that, and you're very much down to limited choices. Whereas when your mind's open, when your vibration's raised and your mind's nice and open, answers can pop in that are completely off. It's like, oh, where did that come from? That's something that's a different way of looking at it completely, and that was not something that your logical mind would get to. So again, everything comes back to raising the vibration, and we have to do it with the kids. It's not their fault they're in school having it crushed out of them, and it's not a lot of people's fault they're in work and they're having it crushed out of them. Even just the air conditioning, fluorescent lighting, all that sort of thing brings it down. So very important to work on ourselves, you know. Lindsay, you've got your hand up. Perhaps this can be the last comment.
Well, I'm just going to totally agree with what you've just said, Lynn, because I think that's, you know, that is the foundation of it all, and you know, and it is the Love Party. That the name is there for a hugely valid reason, because it is about love, and the critical aspect is we have to learn to love ourselves first, because that's what's been programmed out of us. we've been taught of lack of self-worth. And again, as you say, with all these structures that we've got with the politics, and as Rachel's explaining what's going on all around, it's about constantly, lowering our vibration. And the act of seeing the programming and self-love is the starting point, because once you love yourself, then, as you say, the empathy then is for everyone else around.
Your
And-
heart center
yeah.
literally expands. You can measure
And-
it. It's,
And the analogy of being in the aeroplane, and when the oxygen mask comes down, you've got to put that on yourself first before you can then help the person next to you. And it's the ego has a lot of resistance to this too, unfortunately.
well, it does, because we're trained to.
We've been programmed with it.
We've been programmed with it. We've been trained to
Yes.
take so much notice of it. The ego is there to keep us really in a
Safe.
survival state, But so we shouldn't be using it nearly as often as we are, and that's a programming thing. But
brilliant.
it's it does all start with us. When we manage to raise our own vibration, we can raise that of others, and I suppose that's what we're all about, really. And then trying to help people up a little bit before they get destroyed by the matrix lot. Okay, does anybody have anything else to say? Anybody have any last few words of wisdom for us? Is your hand up, Lindsay, or are you just there, you're taking it down? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. That was a really wide-ranging discussion.
We're going to
coming back
finish
to yourself, always
Yeah, we're
coming
going
back
to finish the recording before we all leave, so that if anyone wants to say anything not recorded, please.
Okay, lovely. Yes. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for
turning up and
hosting,
contributing.
Lynn. Thanks for hosting.
Thank you, Rachel.
Everyone give a wave. Bye-bye. And before I stop. Bye.